When I moved from Clayton to rural North Carolina, I thought I understood power outages. You lose power, you wait a few hours, it comes back. That was city thinking. Out here, the problem is different. If your house is on a well, the power going out does not just mean no lights. It can mean no running water. If you just moved to a rural property, or you have lived on one for years and never really thought this through, this video is for you. Because rural power outages are not the same problem as city outages. Here is what changes the moment you move outside city limits. In a city or suburb, a power outage is usually simple. You lose lights. The fridge is off. The internet is down. But a lot of the systems around you are still there. Water may still come from the tap. Roads may still be close to stores. Cell service may still be strong. And help may be nearby. Rural outages are different. Your house may depend on systems that stop when the grid stops. If you have a well, that well pump needs electricity. If you heat with propane, wood, or backup power, that plan needs fuel and timing. If trees block the road, getting fuel, medicine, or supplies may not be simple. The outage is not just about comfort. It is about knowing what stops working first. And the first system I would check in a rural outage plan is water. Because if your house is on a well, the pump usually needs electricity. That means the power going out can affect more than lights, outlets, and appliances. It can affect showers, toilets, cooking, hand washing, pets, livestock, and drinking water. A lot of people do not realize that until the first long outage. They have food in the pantry. They have flashlights. Maybe they even have a generator. But they never asked one simple question. How do we get water if the well pump is not running? That answer can be different for every house. Maybe you need stored water. Maybe you need a generator that can actually start the well pump. Maybe you need to know whether your pressure tank gives you any short-term buffer. The goal is not to make this complicated. The goal is to know your answer before the storm is already here. Once you understand the water problem, the generator question gets a lot more specific. Most people do not just need a generator that can run a few lights. If your house is on a well, you need a generator that can start the well pump. That is where a lot of rural homeowners get caught. A 3,500-watt generator can sound like enough. Refrigerator, a few lights, phone chargers, maybe a fan. On paper, that looks fine. But motors do not only need running watts, they need starting watts. And a well pump can need a much bigger surge to start than people expect. A common half-horsepower well pump might run around 1,000 watts. But starting it can take 2,000 to 2,500 watts, sometimes more depending on the pump and depth. If the generator is already carrying the refrigerator and other loads, that surge can be the difference between water and no water. The pump may not start, the generator may bog down, or the breaker may trip right when you need it most. That is why I think about rural generator sizing differently. For a well home, 5,000 watts is the floor I would start from. 5,500 to 7,500 watts gives you more breathing room. Not because you are trying to power the whole house like nothing happened, because you need enough headroom for the things that spike when they start. Well pump, refrigerator, freezer, some lights, device charging, maybe a small window air conditioner or heat-related load, depending on the season. The mistake is buying for the average load. Storm planning has to account for the starting surge. That is why Home Grid Up has a free power calculator. You can add the well pump, refrigerator, freezer, lights, and the things you actually care about. Then see the running watts and starting watts separately. The goal is not to buy the biggest generator on the shelf. The goal is to know the smallest generator that can safely handle your real outage plan, especially if your water depends on it. Generator size is only half the question. The next question is fuel. Because a generator that runs out of fuel during a long outage is just a heavy box in the garage. Gasoline is familiar. Most people understand it. Most small generators can use it. And before a storm, it feels simple enough to fill a few cans. But during a major outage, gasoline has a weak point. Everyone needs it at the same time. Gas stations may lose power. Lines get long. Pumps run dry. Roads may be blocked. And even if you stored gas ahead of time, gasoline does not sit forever without proper rotation and stabilizer. So if your whole outage plan depends on gasoline, your plan depends on resupply. Propane behaves differently. It stores longer. It is cleaner to handle. You can keep tanks ready before storm season. And if you already use propane for heat, cooking, a fireplace, or an outdoor tank, it may fit naturally into your home setup. That does not mean propane is perfect. Propane generators can use more fuel than people expect. Cold weather can affect tank performance, and you still need enough stored capacity for the number of hours you plan to run. But for rural homeowners, propane gives you one big advantage. You can plan your fuel before everyone else is standing in line. That is why dual fuel generators are worth considering. Gasoline gives you flexibility. Propane gives you storage stability. Together, they give you options. The real question is not which fuel sounds better. The real question is how many hours you need to run the generator each day. Maybe you only run it in the morning and evening to pump water, cool the fridge, charge devices, and handle the essentials. Maybe a battery or solar setup carries the light overnight loads. That kind of plan can stretch fuel much further than running a generator 24 hours a day. The next thing people usually underestimate is food. Not because they do not care, because the timeline is shorter than most people think. Your refrigerator is only considered safe for about 4 hours after the power goes out. That is 4 hours if the door stays closed. Every time someone opens it to check, grab something, or look around, that safe window gets smaller. The danger line is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. If food sits above 40 degrees for more than 2 hours, you are in the risk zone. And during a storm outage, guessing is not a plan. A cheap appliance thermometer can save you from making that decision blind. Put one in the fridge. Put one in the freezer. Then when the power goes out, you are not asking, "I wonder if this is still okay." You can actually look. The freezer gives you more time, but only if you keep it closed. A full freezer can hold a safe temperature for about 48 hours. A half-full freezer is closer to 24 hours. That is why empty freezer space matters. Before storm season, freeze water bottles and use them to fill gaps. They help the freezer stay cold longer. And later, if you need them, they become ice for a cooler. Food safety is not complicated. Keep the doors closed. Know the temperature. Use the freezer like cold storage. And decide what matters before the outage starts. The piece of emergency prep that gets skipped most often is communication. Specifically, what happens when the phone is not enough? In a normal outage, your phone feels like the backup plan. You check the weather, text family, look at the outage map, maybe scroll local updates. But during a larger storm, the phone can become fragile fast. The battery runs down. Cell towers get overloaded. Service drops. Internet may be out. And rural areas may have fewer nearby towers to begin with. That is why a NOAA weather radio still matters. It is not fancy. It is not exciting. But it gives you direct National Weather Service information without needing cell service. For a rural home, that can be the difference between knowing what is happening and guessing. Keep one charged. Keep spare batteries. Know where it is before the storm starts. And make a simple family communication plan. Who do you check on? Who checks on you? Where do you meet if roads are blocked or phones are down? Good communication planning is not about buying more gear. It is about making sure one failed signal does not leave you cut off. So here is the simple version. If you live in a rural home, especially one with a well, storm prep starts with systems, not just supplies. First, water. Know how much your household needs and store it before the storm. Second, generator sizing. Do not size for average use only. Account for starting watts, especially if you need to run a well pump. Third, fuel. Gasoline is useful, but it depends on supply. Propane stores longer and gives you options, especially with a dual fuel generator. Fourth, food. The refrigerator window is short. The freezer gives you more time, but only if it stays closed. Fifth, communication. Have at least one way to get weather information that does not depend on cell service. None of this has to be extreme. You do not need to turn your house into a bunker. You just need to know what stops working, what keeps working, and what needs a backup plan. That is the whole idea behind Home Grid Up. Make the plan before the outage, use the math before the store shelves are empty, and make rural emergency prep easier to understand before the storm is already here. Everything I talked about in this video is easier when you can run the numbers for your own house. That is why I built homegridup.com. There are free tools for water storage, emergency power, storm readiness, food planning, and communication planning. No account required, no email required, no pressure, just practical tools for homeowners who want to know what they actually need before an outage happens. If your home is on a well, start with water, then check the power calculator, then think through fuel, food, and communication, one step at a time. Hurricane season starts June 1st. If you are watching this before the season starts, you still have time. If you are watching during storm season, start today. Links are in the description. And in the next video, I will look at how much propane you actually need for a week-long outage.